Welcome everyone to the Festival of the Unexceptional 2024, a festival that celebrates the mundane motoring. Forget the one-off Ferrari and luscious Lamborghinis, this festival puts the once common cars on a pedestal. Cars from the 70s, 80s and 90s that you practically saw on every street corner but are now almost completely gone, got their one day in the year to show their true worth. But it's not all mundane everyday stuff at the show, it also has some surprises, like you'd think someone turned up with an Audi, but it turns out to be a Mitsubishi Sapporo. Or what about this, you think you've bought a baguette, but it turns out there's a Peugeot attached to it. Or maybe you just don't care about cars at all. In any case, if I wasn't busy getting food or talking to the many fans of the channel, no seriously, although I did announce that I would be at the show, for me it turned in almost like a Net Sauter Reviews meet and greet, which I absolutely love by the way. I always like to either mock or show you some of the cars I found interesting, along with a bit of useless information. But this time, allow me to also give you a personal touch by telling you a bit of my own family car history in the second part of this two-part video. The show is held in an absolute magical location, Grimsthorpe Castle, one of the many castles, mansions or estates so typically scattered across the countryside of England. After leaving a local farm road to enter the area, we drove for another 10 minutes passing endless lines of trees and entering a beautiful and quaint little valley before arriving at the showgrounds. The show can be cut up in two areas, the Concours de l'Ordinaire area and the general showground. In the inner courtyard of the castle, you'll find some 50 cars that compete for the prize and the title for the best preserved but otherwise ordinary car. Some of these cars are simply immaculate, and then there are some cars that require a bit of a bump start. But each and every car always makes you wonder that same question, who the hell saved something like this? But the old cars of today are the classic cars of tomorrow. Just give it time. Let's have a look. The first car is one that genuinely surprised me, and I should be ashamed. This is a DAF 44, a car from my home country, the Netherlands. So at first glance, nothing special. But it gets a bit more interesting, because who decided that they like a Dutch DAF so much that they bring it over to the UK? Well, if you look closely, you'll see that it's just no ordinary classic car. It's an all-original UK spec car, with the steering wheel on the right, or wrong, side of the car. Now, I know some DAFs were exported to other countries like the USA, but you know, they failed miserably. But I never knew they were also exported to the UK and converted to right-hand drive. This is an Audi A2, at first glance a bit of a weirdly shaped oddball, especially for Audi, and one that is often overlooked, but quite a few interesting stories revolve around this car. The A2 was Audi's and Volkswagen's effort in making an ultra-fuel efficient car. Call it a weird body shape, but it's highly aerodynamic and very light thanks to its all-aluminium body. If you chose the right engine, like the 1.2-liter 3-cylinder diesel engine, expect to get as much as 40 or 50 kilometers on 1 liter of fuel, or for my Imperial friends out there, that's close to 100 miles a gallon. Its weird design, high price and misunderstood image made it somewhat of a failure. Not many were sold, and currently they are dirt cheap. I don't see this becoming an expensive classic, but I dare to say that it will become an interesting future classic in the coming years. This cute and cuddly car right here is a Renault Twingo. See, I associate these cars as the ultimate grocery getters for older housewives, but it has already gathered quite a cult status and following, so much even Renault has teased us with a retro-inspired reintroduction not long ago. And what's not to like? The frog eyes, the 3 small vents on the hood, the cute smile, and above all, a very practical car for its size. I distinctly remember sitting in the back seat in one of these one day and finding out that it's not an actual seat with a body molding with removable cushions on it, or at least that's how I saw it. I also learned at the show that these cars were not sold over in the UK or in right-hand drive configuration, as Renault was scared that the car car would cut into the Clio sales, a car positioned just above it. Therefore, this is essentially forbidden fruit for the British, that have to import these themselves from Europe. This is a Daihatsu applause. Yeah, I get it, stop clapping. A car such as this was the winner of last year's show. Like, I'm sorry, if you think my car, a Hyundai, Hyundai, or Hyundai, right, so now you can't correct me anymore in the comments, is a grandpa car with its sedate styling and boring grey color, then what about this car? For me, this is one of the ultimate old people's cars. It looks even more sedate. If inoffensiveness was a car, this would be it. It also doesn't help that one of these was always parked in the parking lot behind the apartment complex where my grandmother lives, further supporting my theory. From Japan, we move to another part of Asia with this car right here, a Proton Premier. For a moment, I genuinely didn't know what it was, but then I remembered a bit from Top Gear, where they showed cars on the Pacific Rim, including various Proton models. As far as I know, no Proton has ever found its way over to the Netherlands, but it did find its way to a few European countries without any significant success. The UK story is a bit longer, however, stretching all the way until 2012. That's not to say that the company is still active in its home country, Malaysia. Okay, what is this? And why are there two of those? It's a Bond Bug. This car was made by the Reliant Motor Company, otherwise known for making three-wheelers. Yes, those three-wheelers. After the purchase of the Bond Car Company, which made similar three-wheeled products, it was decided to launch a car and an exciting version of the three-wheeled concept to appeal to younger people, and the car was given to the Bond Company, named the Bond Bug. For some period in time, three-wheeled cars were somewhat popular in the UK thanks to special regulations and tax deductions, and the Bond Bug outperformed some small basic normal cars, like the classic Mini. But it also outperformed in price, making it not very competitive compared to those regular four-wheeled cars. About 2,300 were made. Talking about basic transport, here is something from a completely different part of the world, a Zastava Yugo from the former Republic of Yugoslavia. Although it was sold in various countries under various different names, in general, the Yugo name stuck. In Europe, it was seen as a handsome and very budget-friendly alternative to the other classic people's cars on sale. Think, once again, of the Mini, but also cars like the French Deux Chevaux. The car also made it over to the United States, where a savvy businessman named Malcolm Bricklin sold them under such slogans as the cheapest car in the States. And if you want to know more about it, I have a video about it made in the past. Let's get to the opposite end of the car spectrum, luxury cars. Here is a classic Jack and Lexus side by side. On your right, a first-generation Lexus LS, and on your left, a Jaguar XJ. A tough choice, but I think I'll go for the Jack. It just has that little extra posh British luxury. And here is another one of those what you think are forgotten cars, but was actually one of the most prominent cars of the show, a Rover 75, as well as another few Rover models. My father loves these Rovers, especially the interior with the downright grandfather clock gauges and Chesterfield-like leather seats. And let's not forget the application of real walnut wood. Tally-ho. And on the outside, a responsible amount of shiny materials. Back in the day, I would somehow always mix these up with the Jaguar X-types, and I couldn't decide which one was more hideous. But now, they really start to grow on me. I save what I think is the best for last. Just when we had plans to slowly wrap up and leave the show, a gentleman came up and, as of course, he asked if I was that YouTube guy. He then explained that he was the proud owner of a campervan based on a Dodge B-Series van from the late 70s. Now, considering my father is very much a campervan guy and myself a 70s guy, our interest was piqued, and as we already noticed its arrival earlier that day, we asked if we could see the interior and were given a tour. And just prepare your butts, because this van is from 78 or 79, completely restored, and you just gotta see this interior. And I can't do this without music. Hold on, let me just quickly put on some funk music. Hold on, here we go, come on. Okay, are you ready? Enter a world inspired by Sir Lancelot and King Arthur combined. It's a funky, customized, medieval-themed camper van. It's brown on brown on brown and then even some more brown. Even on the outside, they couldn't decide between the many shades of brown and just decided to paint every shade on it. Inside, marvel at the application of real and fake wood. Just look at the original seating, fridge and kitchen. The seats are very much like the seats from those of the 1970s land yachts, just as deep and soft. Look up at the ceiling and be amazed by its wood and stained glass Tudor-style lighting. And maybe the best of all, look at the bathroom. Just last week, the owner discovered it has something left in the cabinet. That's right, it's 100% authentic, original 1970s campervan toilet paper. It has been stuck there ever since until last week. I was only a couple minutes in this interior and I just felt dirty. I needed a bath. And I believe this really shows the true and awesome stories that make these car shows so great. Sometimes it's just not the story about the car itself, but the story of its owners and its own history. I had a blast at the show, because the last thing I want to mention is the many people that came up to me and said hi. I had some absolute great conversations with some of you talking about our shared passion of cars, and that is what I think shows like this truly make unique and great. I had a wonderful time, but as always, the fun will end sooner than later, and it was time for me to head home again. If you're interested, I uploaded a second video back-to-back where I go a bit deeper in my own personal family car history by using some of the cars at the show as an example.